Who's going to finish in fourth place? That's a tricky question. To me, it feels like the first year you can actually believe some external forces are going to work against the Chiefs. I hope the suspension is max for Rice. He should have to share a cell with Chiefsaholic. Herbert's numbers are going to be lower than what people expect. These are just slow, blocking, white tight ends. Should I swear here? Somebody bleep it.
Well, in today's video, I have Brandon Perna from That's Good Sports on to talk about the state of the AFC West, and all jokes aside, he gives a pretty brutally honest take that most Chiefs fans are going to like, but the rest of the West and NFL is probably going to hate. So let's talk about it. But first, how about those? All right, you know it's that time of the year again when it's a little slow in the offseason, and we have Brandon Perna on the channel to seriously talk about the state of the AFC West. How are you doing, Brandon? And who do you think is finishing fourth in the West? And then we'll go with that team in reverse order to who we think is going to win.
Well, I'm wearing red to try and curse your Chiefs today. So may my curse bring them to the bottom of the division for the first time in God only knows how long. Who's going to finish in fourth place? That's a tricky question. I think it will still be the Raiders. And I say that while also acknowledging that I believe the Raiders have gotten better this offseason. And I think they have corrected their biggest issues, which is head coach and general manager and quarterback. And quarterback, obviously. Geno Smith, I think that's just such a solid QB for them to have right now. Buys them time to kind of figure out what they want to do. So I say the Raiders, and I say that in a complimentary way to the Raiders.
I agree with you. I think the AFC West is just getting a lot better in general. So even though the Raiders made some moves that I think were the right moves, I still think they're probably fighting for fourth in the division. And that's not even to throw, I'm not trying to throw shade, even though Chiefs and Raiders rivalry is what it is over the years. But just when we talk about these next teams and the moves that they've made, the coaching staff that they have, I mean, it's just going to be hard. I think the AFC West is the most competitive division in football, maybe aside from the NFC North. I mean, you could maybe argue another division if you want, but only two divisions had three playoff teams last year, from what I recall, with that being one of them being the AFC West. Geno Smith, I do like Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers. I think I'm a little more concerned just like looking at their depth chart of their defense. And what does Pete Carroll have left in the tank? I think he's going to provide more stable coaching than they've had in quite some time, but is it going to be enough?
Pete Carroll's, he's going to live another 70 years. So we may look at Pete Carroll as a senior citizen, but he is halfway through his life. He's a middle-aged man right now, if you've seen the energy he brings. So I think just stability as a head coach is like the biggest thing. A guy who's done it so many times, he doesn't second guess himself. He's not going to alienate his veteran quarterback after a season like Josh McDaniels. He's more ready for the job than Antonio Pierce was. Genty, yeah, that's the thing that could probably put some fear in our defenses. But it's like the Raiders might be fighting for fourth place with a winning record. That's like when you're talking about how competitive it can be. We say that, and we said that back in 2022, I think, because the Broncos, the Raiders, and the Chargers all made big swings that offseason, and it worked out for none of those teams. So I hope that doesn't happen again. I hope the division is actually very competitive, and I hope we're guessing about who finishes in first place, in weeks 16 and 17 and 18. I hope it's not just like a foregone conclusion that the Chiefs already have the division sealed. Like, I expect the Chiefs to win, but I hope like they actually have to play in the final week of the season to like solidify that spot. That'd be a nice change.
It would be more fun for football fans in general. As a Chiefs fan, I always like locking it up early and just chilling for a minute and then knowing, well, you don't know necessarily. Like last year was a bit of an anomaly. I feel like you knew not only the Chiefs were going to win the West, but they had the 1 seed like by Christmas or something.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case. So the Chiefs were not only resting their starters week 18, which this year will be against the Raiders, I believe, but they weren't only resting their starters. knowing that they won the division, but they had that first round bye already. So for the average football fan, Chiefs fans aside, it's always more fun when you have the competitive divisions all the way down to the wire. Next team on the AFC West ladder for me is going to be the Chargers. I think it will be very close with the Broncos and the Chargers, but what Harbaugh did with that team in 1 year, taking them from 5 wins to whatever that was, 11-ish wins and a wild card berth in just 1 year with basically the same roster, I feel like they're going to be in a competitive spot again. But if I had to put money down on who's actually going to rise above the Chargers in the West, I'm going to go with the Broncos, and we'll talk about them next. But what are your thoughts on the Chargers, and are you in line with my thoughts there of them probably, if you had to put money on it, finishing third in the division?
Yeah, I like that scenario. I like it a lot. Yeah, they took another running back. I thought the Broncos would draft an Omarion Hampton, but Denver goes, Jahdae Barron, corner instead. So I think that the Chargers got better in an area that's really important for the Chargers, and that's at running back. Now, I say that as somebody we just had J.K. Dobbins visiting here in Denver, and he was just with the Chargers, and they were better when he was on the field, and I hope the Broncos signed J.K., but I think the way Harbaugh likes to win games is running the ball physically, dominating your opponent, grinding it out that way, and then allowing Justin Herbert to just make plays when he needs to versus like relying on Justin Herbert to throw your team to victory. So it's like they're going to be good. I feel like Herbert's numbers are going to be lower than what people expect, but the Chargers are going to keep winning games. Their questions are on defense, and they actually made the right decision in choosing Khalil Mack over Joey Bosa. And now, Bosa already injured with the Bills
already, man.
We all saw that coming, but what's the identity of the Chargers defense? And I think it was solid last year. If that goes into a level where it's, a top 8 defense, then they become a very dangerous team. And they added help, in the receiving room. Who's the guy they took out of Ole Miss?
Trey Harris, that's who it was. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So, and McConkey was as good as advertised. Mike Williams comes back. So if their receiving room's better, they can become dangerous. Because that was an issue for them last year. They didn't have any playmakers outside of Ladd.
I thought they would do a little bit more to the wide receiver room, if my memory serves me right. They had quite a bit of cap space heading into the offseason. You bring back Mike Williams. I mean, you have Will Dissly. I can't remember if they added Conklin this offseason or last. They're fine.
I hate Will Dissly. He's like a blocking tight end who always looks like a receiving weapon against the Broncos. I feel like the Broncos are the only team that consistently struggled to slow down Will Dissly. It started with the Seahawks back in the day, and they brought in Najee Harris too. So they've got Hampton, Harris, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see how the receivers shake out there. I think Trey Harris, he has to be big for him right away.
Which is that's where my concern probably lies with them, but I'm fine with it as a Chiefs fan. I think it just shows you the emphasis Harbaugh is just putting into the run game. Like Najee, he's not the most athletic man in the world, but he's consistent, durable. 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons or close to it. So you're just looking for your workhorse, Omarion Hampton. He'll probably get worked in pretty quickly as well. So I'm definitely, we'll just see. I'm on the fence with the Chargers, and I just am not sure they did enough. And even if they get back to the playoffs, what Justin Herbert's going to show up? Because as good as he's been, he hasn't at times in the playoffs. Now, did Justin Herbert blow that 27-point lead? Was that all on him? I don't think so. A couple years ago in the playoffs, but that was a really fun one to watch too. All right, before we get to the rest of this awesome conversation with Brandon Perna, the NFL season is right around the corner. Well, sorta. I mean, training camp is first, but we know the Chiefs' entire schedule, and Arrowhead is about to go crazy this year. So you definitely need to get yourself some tickets sooner rather than later. Well, that's where the sponsor of today's video, SeatGeek, comes right in. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is not only the #1 rated ticketing app, but there's more than 70,000 events listed on their site and app. Speaking of their app, it is super simple to use. and I prefer, honestly, to use the app over their website. And there's plenty of sporting events going on right now. MLB, MLS, plus the NBA Finals are taking place. Then you can't forget about concerts, comedians, and festivals. You name it, there's a very good chance there's tickets on SeatGeek. They make the process super easy for you as well, rating tickets on a scale of 1 to 10 so you know if you're getting a good deal. Just look for the green dots because green means good, red means bad. On top of that, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee, and you know I had to come through for you guys. You can use code HBTC10 for 10% off your next set of tickets on SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code HBTC10. Just make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek. Now, the Broncos, you mentioned it. J.K. Dobbins just visited. This is your team. This is no secret. How are you feeling about the Broncos? They drafted RJ Harvey. Their defense is insane. A couple 49ers brought in, a little bit of injuries, maybe injury history with a couple of those guys, specifically Greenlaw. But how are you feeling about the Broncos as a whole? I'm putting them next. Sorry, I think they're probably second in the West, but it could be close. I don't know that the gap, I think that it used to be like this, Chiefs and then kind of everybody else, but I do feel like that gap has closed a little bit. Chiefs just have to not win the West for me to predict them the next offseason to not win it the next year.
I am in a spot where I'm trying to not get too excited about this season. Last year it was like, let's just see if Bo Nix can do it. And my thought last year was, I don't even care if the Broncos have a winning record. If come December/January, we have our quarterback, and I don't have to think about that, it'll be a win. They sneak into the playoffs. They overachieved. It was awesome. So we got our quarterback. Then it was like, what kind of weapons can we add around Bo Nix? Free agency didn't have like a ton of crazy receiving weapons to go get, but they brought in Evan Ingram, which is huge because like the Broncos receiving room was Adam Troutman, Lucas Kroll, Nate Adkins. These are just slow, blocking, white tight ends. And now they have a playmaker who I think poses a threat from the position, and that's going to be big. Marvin Mims came on strong towards the end of the season. I think Sean Payton figured out how to dial him into the offense, so I feel good about that. Cortland Sutton, always a little bit underrated. And Devon Vele will be going into his second year. And then they took Pat Bryant in the draft, and a lot of people are like, that's a huge reach. That's a massive reach. But I think he's a Sean Payton guy. And if, like, at this point, I'm going to just trust that it's going to be a good pick. I don't know how often he's going to be targeted, but like just getting Evan Ingram to upgrade the receiving part of the tight end room, I think is going to help the offense quite a bit. Offensive line stays together. They were pretty good last year, and Barron coming in for a defense that was a lot better than I thought it was going to be last year is a nice add. You get probably the top corner in this draft, outside of maybe Travis Hunter, and he's not even going to play his corner primarily. So I would say Barron, top corner. That's a great draft pick. And then Greenlaw and coming in at linebacker, and Talanoa Hufanga at safety addressed their two needs in free agency. My concern, though, is like the Broncos' defense last year, it wasn't perfect. Like, it was opportunistic. It was turnovers and turnovers they turned into touchdowns. In a lot of games, the defense changed the momentum in games. And it's like, that's a hard thing to rely on from your defense in back-to-back years. And I think the pieces they added hopefully allow it to be a more complete defense this year, even if they're not getting, say, as many turnovers and turning those into points, which saved their asses many times. And hopefully, if the defense kind of loses a bit of those opportunistic plays, we're making up for it on offense because Bo Nix has had a year with Sean Payton. He's not going to be like just trying to, digest the playbook every week. He's going to know it. And, we'll see. We'll see.
The running back room, I know some fans were a little surprised by the RJ Harvey selection in the draft. Looking at the rest of the room with Estime, McLaughlin, I think it's Batty, Tyler Batty. He a Batty,
Bidet?
maybe?
It's actually Bidet.
Oh, yeah, like the toilet. Okay, yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
But he could be a Batty, you never know. But I think that the addition of J.K. Dobbins would be nice. It feels like they could use a little bit more in there. Not that this wouldn't be a sufficient room, and who am I to really talk sometimes with the Chiefs running back room. They find ways to make it work. They just aren't run heavy. But the Broncos like to utilize that run game a little bit more, or hopefully they will be using it a little bit more, because they didn't use it as much as we thought they would last year.
Correct. No, I think RJ Harvey is going to be one of the most important players for the Broncos on offense, especially if they don't bring in a guy like JK. That was another guy who I think, like, when you're looking at the pre-draft evaluations of running backs, he didn't get mentioned as much as like Omarion Hampton, Travion Henderson, Judkins. But like, once they drafted him, and then once you started to pay attention to what the football nerds were saying about him, like, you're like, oh shit, this guy's pretty good. Pardon, I don't know. Should I swear here?
Pretty good.
But I think he's good, and I think, again, this is the guy Sean Payton wanted, and we got to trust that. Last year, the running back room was disappointing. I love Javonte Williams, but after his injury, he just was never the same. And I think just this week, Sean Payton said something like, it felt like in run situations, the running backs were leaving some meat on the bone, in terms of, like, the offensive line was blocking correctly and the running backs just weren't as efficient as they needed to be. Estime's heading into year 2. We were high on Estime last year, and then he just didn't get used. He fumbled in his, like, one of his first carries or his first game, and then he was in the doghouse. So he's like an X factor guy, Estime, in terms of, if he's good, and people loved him coming out of college, like, I think there's some upside there. But I've seen RJ Harvey's thighs at training camp, and I believe in his thighs, and I want to lean on the running game a little more. But I think Sean Payton wants to call the game similar to Andy Reid, where I think he wants everything to go through his quarterback, and he wants to throw more than he runs and use the passing game to set up runs as needed. And I think he kind of tried to do that with Knicks last year, maybe a little too much, honestly.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like a nice trial by fire. Like, this is how Sean's going to call games. They're going to throw a ton of passes, and you better figure it out. And hopefully, Nick's, his stats, his touchdowns, all that stuff goes up, and then the runs, when they are there, are bigger and more effective. But
what Sean Payton was able to do last year, even with all the dead money left behind by the Russell Wilson deal, and I still think there's a bunch this year too, but you're out of it. I think only 30-something million. Yeah. But next year, you're out of it completely. So I feel like when you look at the future of the Broncos with Knicks on the rookie deal, the defense, the way that that's built with PS2 kind of heading things up, but that extremely frustratingly dangerous defensive line, I mean, the Broncos are going to be a problem. Let's just be honest. I don't know that they win the West this year, anything like that, but I could definitely see them splitting with the Chiefs, which they almost did last year. If it wasn't for that insane blocked end game field goal.
Yeah.
Now, was it Chiefs and Broncos last year, week 18? Because that game just does not count.
Oh, you mean when we just dominated you guys? When you put out all of your best players and they destroyed you guys? Yeah.
That game was
awesome.
They should have just walked out on the field and, like, waved the white flag. And because, like, what? Yeah. Anyway, we don't need to go down that rabbit trail. But I just feel like the Broncos are in a place where they're, like, I just look at the trenches. Defense really can win these games. And if you look at the Super Bowl, which you probably really enjoyed, with the Chiefs just getting worked over, it was just that D line of the Eagles, and then really the O line too, keeping things moving for the Eagles on the offensive side of the ball. Chiefs did a good job kind of hindering Saquon, but they forgot to do, I think, anything else. Anywhere else.
You need that many resources to stop the Saquon and the Eagles run game. But I didn't think we would see your defense get taken advantage of the way they did in the Super Bowl. And it was nice to see. But, I mean, you got to just credit, it is the Eagles were physically dominant up front. And that is a great way to win games in the NFL. Like the Lions have been able to do it. Like Chris Jones on the Chiefs defensive line, like everything's dictated through him, and it's been frustrating. But like Zach Allen's worked out very nicely for the Broncos. He was insanely dominant last year, and that was a big reason that the defense was opportunistic. Was Zach Allen and Nick Bonito had like a breakout year, and I think for the Broncos, you're looking at a guy like Nick Bonito, your edge rusher. He needs to do that again. Like to really, like for a pass rusher to have one great season is nice in year 3, but like I want to see Bonito on the defensive side of the ball. I think he's the most important player to see like repeat what he did last year. Like I have confidence Zach Allen will be good again. Same way, like you just know when Chris Jones is in there, like he's going to command multiple guys trying to block him. He's still going to break through that. He's going to generate pressure. He's great against the run. And it was actually very nice. Like I used Chris Jones as like a metric for other defensive linemen, and seeing like Zach Allen be ahead of Chris Jones last year, and I think it was like sacks maybe and or like QB pressures. I'm like, damn, he is doing a really good job if Jones is 2 or 3 now in those same categories. So
real quick, you see that goofy looking face right there? That's because Brandon Perna has a coffee company, Benchwarmer Brew, and I have my own blend on it, HBTC blend. And so far, almost 60 reviews, $21, or you can save 10% when you subscribe for a monthly subscription. You can get it pre-ground or whole bean. This is a very smooth medium roast with origin notes of Mexico and Ethiopia. And honestly, there's a bunch of different coffee that you can look at. F the Refs, the backup coffee blend beans, Devil Magic, all of it's there, all ran by Perna. But also I get a cut as well. So if you want to get some great taste in coffee and support some of your favorite content creators, link is in the description down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, I'm assuming you say, hey, the Broncos are most likely finishing second in the West. And you don't like to say this, but it's like the Chiefs are probably going to win again. But I would just love to know your thoughts. You troll around a lot about the Chiefs, but what are your thoughts about the Chiefs as we head into this season based on what you've seen them do in free agency and the draft and how you think it could pan out?
Yeah. Well, how many Chiefs win? 14 last year?
15.
Did they win 15?
They did, but there's so many that were like crazy down the wire. The Raiders fumbling in field goal range. Yeah.
Yeah. There's close games. Now, part of winning close games is being a good team, right? Like you get adversity at the end of the game, you overcome it. The block on the Broncos, like that was a film study play. Like
it was.
They realized, I can't even remember who was struggling to block on those plays for the Broncos. But like this guy keeps falling down. Like we're going to just overload that part. And it worked. That's not going to happen again for Kansas City. Just roll of the dice luck. Some of those games you get, and that's every good team gets a little bit of luck. I just did a video about the Lions because they had 15 wins as well. No team has ever won 15 games and then gone on the next season to win 15 games again. So their win total, I think Chiefs are going to be like a 12 or 13 win team. Probably 13.
That's fair.
Maybe 12. And then you got the Chargers and the Broncos hovering right around, 10 to 12 area. Probably like the Chargers or Broncos, whoever finishes second, and I think it'll be close between those two, probably comes down to the series between those two. It's like whichever one of those teams gets 11 wins is probably second in the AFC West. So to me, the Chiefs feel like 12, 13 wins, maybe 11 for the Broncos, maybe 10 for the Chargers, and maybe, 9 even for the Raiders. I figure you got to have 9 wins now. I was going to say 500, but the stupid extra game ruins that. I feel like it's going to be in that area. And the Chiefs have a ton of primetime games, and there's a lot of good teams they got to play. So it's just like nature of that schedule too. And even though they do it every year, the other concern is like Travis Kelce's production dipped significantly last year. And I feel like so much of the Chiefs' offensive success is him being something that opposing defenses have to account for. Like extra, you know what I mean? And it feels like he's going to still be good. He'll still be Travis Kelce, but not the threat that he always was. And I think that slows down a lot of things for the Chiefs. The caveat is you guys were riddled with injuries to your top receivers early last season. So that's what's scary. Like if Hollywood Brown's healthy, if Rashee Rice comes back healthy and avoids suspension. Like, there's two things there, but
Worthy.
yeah, there's upside in your receiving room this year compared to last year, and you didn't have to do a lot to fix that. But I hope the suspension is max for Rice.
What's
Unsafe
max?
driving is not something we should take lightly, NFL. He should have to share a cell with Chiefsaholic for half the season.
That's a little too much. I think that's a little too much. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gets around 6-ish games of a suspension. I'm hoping for like 4, but I don't even know if it's going to happen this year, just with the courts being so slowed down. So we'll see. What do you think about just the rest of the AFC? If you had to put way too early money on maybe the 2 biggest threats to the Chiefs, I probably know who they are, but who would you have going to the Super Bowl? Maybe not necessarily winning it. We don't even need to talk there, but just who represents the AFC in the Super Bowl this year? Like the 3 biggest odds for you at this point in time, and maybe your quick reasoning why.
It's a nice season to not have to pick the Chiefs, right? It's like they got there 3 times in a row, and then you lose that third one. It's just like probability. It's an uphill battle. And I think recently Kyle Shanahan just talked about the Super Bowl hangover, basically saying like he knew that they weren't going to live up to expectations last year. I think it's kind of a real thing. So it comes down to what? The Bills and Ravens again, in terms of those teams stayed about the same. They were right there. I don't trust the Bengals. They still haven't signed Trey Hendrickson, which is good news for you guys. They seem like they're going to mess that situation up. The AFC South, I'm not really worried about anybody. The Texans kind of took a step back, it felt like, even though their roster's really nice right now. I think it's Bills, Ravens, Chiefs at the top. Those are the 3 teams, I think, competing. But I think your 2 wild cards in terms of deep playoff runs probably are the Chargers and or the Broncos.
I hate that. But when you look at the rest of the AFC, they did get better. Specifically, Chargers and Broncos. Like the Chargers, like, they still have their questions. The Broncos, we'll see about Bo Nix. Like, great rookie year. I think he exceeded a lot of people's expectations.
Yeah.
The argument for me, and I know I'm a Chiefs homer, I recognize that, but it's just when you look at the Bills and the Ravens, and they stayed basically the same, and the Chiefs made a couple different moves, but if the health is on their side this year and the injuries don't take out all their star players and they're forced to rely heavily on a 35-year-old, soon to be 36-year-old Travis Kelce, and have the least explosive offense in the entire NFL from pass and run, they just stay healthy. I have a hard time betting against the Chiefs. I'm not saying they'll make it back to the Super Bowl, but there's another deep playoff run in them again. The question is, how does the health and the injuries hold up throughout the season is probably the biggest question mark to me, because we just don't know.
Yeah, to me, it feels like they kind of wasted all their luck last year. Like, they survived some bad injuries early in the season. They kept winning those crazy games. They got back to the Super Bowl, were primed to three-peat. To me, it feels like the first year you can actually believe some external forces are going to work against the Chiefs to have them lose in the playoffs, which is still like such a luxurious position to be in. I'm kind of like, I want it to be the Broncos, obviously, but second to that, I want to say it's the Bills. I want to see the Bills get back to the Super Bowl in my lifetime because Josh Allen's so much fun to watch. The more I think about the Ravens, to me, it feels like they're the team that just got dumb in the playoffs. They had Derrick Henry. Just give him 30 carries to win. Like, nobody could stop the man all year. He was the number one back until Saquon edged him out later in the season. He's coming back. Lamar's there. They extended Bateman. They added to their defense in the draft. The Ravens feel like maybe they're the team that kind of, I don't know, corrects their mistakes in the playoffs. It feels like their mistakes have been kind of self-inflicted. They just played stupid against you guys 2 years ago, and then they got dumb against the Bills almost, and they were a Mark Andrews dropped pass from probably winning that game. So maybe the Ravens are kind of like the team there, but
I feel like the AFC is the gauntlet you got to get through to get to the Super Bowl, and then your odds of winning we'll see, because the Eagles are a literal super team powerhouse right now and probably will be making it back to the Super Bowl or the conference championship for the next couple of years, I would say. But if you can get through the gauntlet in the AFC, I like the odds of that AFC team winning the Super Bowl. If it's not the Chiefs in there, I'm not rooting for them. But the question for me with the Ravens is, can Lamar and the guys just protect the ball and not make dumb, boneheaded mistakes, not lose the turnover battle 3-1? Because I think that's what it was against the Bills, and they still almost tied the game.
And he was so good all season. Like, Lamar's season last year was insane. It was insane. Okay, here's a question. You have to root for an AFC team to win the Super Bowl that's not the Chiefs. You can pick any AFC team. They don't even have to be good. Which AFC team would you like to see win the Super Bowl if you had to root for them?
I really like the story of Josh Allen. I do. I like the story of the Bills, just what he's done to that franchise. And a lot of times in those playoff games, you could argue last year, he had the opportunity to go win that game and got bamboozled by Spags. But like the 13-second game, what else is Josh Allen supposed to do? So I like that story a lot, but the Chiefs fandom in me is going to prevent saying I want one of the greatest rivals of the Chiefs in the Mahomes era to win it. I would probably go with the Ravens. I just think that would be like a fun story. And I don't have the dislike of the Ravens like I would say the Bengals or the Bills or one of the AFC West rivals. I don't necessarily want to see any AFC West team, but if I had to pick one, I'll go Ravens. Like seeing Lamar get a ring and even Derrick Henry, like that would be pretty cool, even though I would hate it at the same time.
I think, say, in a down year for the Chiefs, let's say the Chiefs everything goes wrong and they miss the playoffs. Let's say Mahomes, he's suspended for PEDs or something. Okay. And the Bills and Josh Allen win the Super Bowl that year. They go and he wins. I think that actually helps the Chiefs' legacy and the rivalry, because then Chiefs fans can say the 1 year we were out of it is the only year the Bills got there and actually won. When the Chiefs weren't there to stop Josh Allen, that was the only way that man got to a Super Bowl.
That's why it's one of the craziest stories to me, because Josh Allen's probably one of the best quarterbacks you've ever seen play the game and has basically, he has an MVP now, but before last year had nothing from a accolade standpoint to his name because of the Chiefs in the playoffs. If the Chiefs or Mahomes didn't exist, the Bills might have been the ones making all the Super Bowl appearances and stuff like that, but it's just you lose 4 or 5 times, I think it's 4, to the Chiefs in the playoffs. It makes it very tough, but he's still, Allen's a Hall of Famer. There's no doubt about it, but it's just one of those, it's kind of like the Manning-Brady situation where Manning got beat out by Brady a bunch of times and the Patriots a bunch of times, really Belichick in that defense a bunch of times in the playoffs, and it affects.
Well, Manning came to the Broncos.
Yeah, it wasn't fun.
We crushed those Patriots in the playoffs. Yeah, no, I think it's good for the rivalry, and probably with the Bills too. I think there's just a bit of them getting out coached in the postseason as well.
Yeah, for sure.
I think Andy
coaching
Reid's
matters.
The longer Belichick's away and the more crazy stuff that happens with Belichick, I think the more of a case that you have to make for Andy Reid, legit shot, I think, to finish as the best coach to ever do it. And it's because he took the Eagles to a Super Bowl before coming to Kansas City. Where's his win total at?
He's third all time, I think.
He's not a jerk.
That helps. No scandals, really? As far as on the field, there's no deflate gate, there's no spy gate. He's just coaching and doing dad jokes at this point in time. So
everybody likes Andy Reid. He's the antithesis of Belichick.